Hello, my name is Michael Booth. I'm the statistician for discipline analysis of Elizabethtown Area School District. Can students be identified as being at risk of becoming behavior issues? That's the main focus of the study. Can students who are going to be behavior issues be identified early enough so intervention can take place so their education is not harmed and they don't harm the education of the students around them? The sample was the class of 2019. These are the current 12th graders at Elizabethtown Area High School. Variables that were agreed upon to be investigated were the GPA, ethnicity, primary school, learning support, and discipline record. When it came to discipline, we counted the level 1 and level 2 referrals. The definition of what we count as a level 1, level 2 referral is better defined in the report. These are all referrals that are going to be handled locally in the building by either the teacher or the local administrator of that building. Having the student be in the district from 3rd grade all the way to 12th was important. We were trying to see if there was something that the school district, Elizabethtown Area School District, was doing that would help predict behavior issues. So the students that were part of the sample were students who were continuously enrolled from 3rd to 12th grade. If they left the district and came back, if they didn't enter the district until later, or if they left, those students were not a part of the sample. The initial investigation breaking down the primary schools, and I want to point out that Fairview is no longer a part of Elizabethtown Area School District. The population shrunk so much for that primary school that the students started to get moved to other buildings to save cost. The ethnicity we see as students who are labeled as white is 183 compared to the smaller numbers of Asian, Hispanic, and multiracial students. This has become an issue that I will talk about later. And the learning support students, 0 represents students who are not labeled as learning support, and the 1 represents students who are labeled as learning support. The other initial investigation we did was looking at the count of referrals for students in 3rd, 7th, 10th, and 11th grade. The circled portion there is the multi-referrals for students who have got multiple referrals in those grades. The majority of students are getting 0, maybe 1 or 2 referrals in that first interval. The students who are getting multiple, say some double-digit referrals, is a very small portion of the students. The main focus of the study is how can we identify those students so we can intervene and help them make better choices to help their own education as well as the students around them. The research questions: is there a relationship between discipline trend, ethnicity, and which primary school the students went to? Can ethnicity, primary schools, academic level, which will be looked at as their GPA, or being labeled as learning support, be used to predict discipline trends for the middle school and high school? Does the discipline trend for a student generally continue as the student progresses through each level of schooling? Is there a difference in the proportion of learning support students who have discipline referrals compared to regular education students who have discipline referrals? Statistical analysis of primary school discipline trends. So the first test that we wanted to run was a logistic regression for the 5th and 4th grade discipline referrals, and we wanted to see if they could be used to predict what primary school that student attended. Looking at our p-value here, we have 0.9942 for the 5th grade total and 0.8844 for the 4th grade total. We used a alpha level of 0.05 throughout the study. Values that are greater than 0.05 show that they're not significant factors. So both these factors are going to be considered not significant. Also looking at the 8th grade discipline trends, we looked at the chi-square test, and we have the 0.896 for a p-value, which again is greater than our 0.05, so it's not a significant factor. I also showed the deviation graph to show that all the deviations are fairly close to each other, negative 0.3 being the low and just over 0.2 being the high. All the primary schools are fairly close to each other when it comes to discipline referrals. Statistical analysis of 11th grade discipline predictions. We tried to predict how many discipline referrals a student would have. We used the Poisson regression analysis, and the idea was to use ethnicity, special education labeled, GPA, and primary school. The last test just showed primary schools is not a significant factor, and with the huge variation in the ethnicity, we also decided that would not be a very useful variable in this study. Looking at special ed and GPA, both p-values are less than the 0.05. We have 0.0163 and less than 0.001, so they are significant factors. Unfortunately, the model, looking at the deviance and the Pearson chi-square, both values that are greater than 1, meaning that the model, or the Poisson model, is not the best model to use for this data set. Statistical analysis of discipline across grade levels. First, looking at all grade levels from 3rd to 11th in this study, we see the p-value of 0.0001 or less than 0.0001. It is a significant factor. There is a difference somewhere in here in one of the grade levels, and I believe it would be with the 7th grade. You can see that the actual is much higher than what we predicted was going to happen when you look at the deviation chart. The 7th grade has it much higher. 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd are all below. So after 7th grade, we are having more discipline referrals according to the chi-square test. Breaking it down just to 11th and 7th grade, or 7th to 11th grade, the 7th grade still has the highest than the other grades. Not quite as different as when you're looking at it from 11th all the way down to 3rd grade. Statistical analysis of learning support students compared to regular ed students. Looking at the 9th and 11th grade comparison, both p-values, 0.0823 and 0.4932, are above our alpha level of 0.05, so they're not significant. There is not a significant difference between the regular ed students and the learning support students compared to the number of referrals that they're having. When looking at the 7th and 8th grade, we have 0.0049 and 0.0011. There is a significant difference between the learning support and regular ed students in these grades. Now, the 7th and 8th grade is in the middle school. The 9th and 11th grade is at the high school level. For my recommendations after the analysis, for statistical analysis of learning support students compared to regular ed students, I would like to know why there is a difference between regular ed and learning support at the middle school level but not at the high school level. Things that might need to be looked at are who's writing the referrals and which principal, dean of student is handling those referrals. Is it being consistent across the board for those? What is the philosophy of discipline, the discipline philosophy for learning support students, and is it the same for both learning support and special ed students? For statistical analysis of discipline across grade levels, I would like to investigate why there was such a jump in 7th grade. Through the primary schools, the intermediate schools, which goes up to 6th grade, the referrals were fairly consistent. The 7th grade is when it jumped up high. Now that's where the middle school, or when students enter the middle school. Why is there such a high jump at that point? Again, looking at who's doing the referrals and who is handling the discipline, assistant principal or dean of students, and are they being consistent? Again, the philosophy from one building to the next might want to be investigated to see if every building is on the same page as what a discipline referral is. My recommendation is to analyze more classes. We looked at the class of 2019, going back looking at 2018, 2017, and see if it is consistent. Okay? Are the significant factors the same this year as they were in other years? Also looking at some more factors. Who wrote the referrals? What were the consequences? Parent involvement, and maybe some post-secondary education variables such as, are the students employed? Did they go to college? Did they decide to continue their education? These are factors that might be more difficult to collect, or data that might be more difficult to collect, but could be useful.